Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what is happening to the market, what we can expect moving forward, and all of that good stuff. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice, and I, of course, am not a financial advisor, but if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., well, again, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day as the market is open, as the market is trading, so definitely check that out. That link, of course, is down below. Options flow, technical analysis, different time frames, etc. So again, all it is, guys, let me go ahead and click here. This is where you go, by the way. Click down here. You can see become a channel member. Click this bad boy, boom, and you get selected or taken right to that page where you can subscribe if you wish. For again, just $3 a month, all my Tesla updates. And sometimes, of course, I go over, QQQ, SPY, and just broader market things. Lately, I've been talking about those kind of things here and there, of course, when there's worth something mentioning. $5 USD a month includes NVDA, all my NVDA updates as well. $7 USD a month includes the first two, of course, plus non-Tesla, non-NVIDIA stocks and charts that I share with members when there's something worth sharing. And on the weekend, I do chart requests with members. But jumping into it, Tesla closing the day with a nice respectable, we'll say 2% on the day, on a day where the market is slightly red, right? So, tech holding up a little bit better than SPY in this case, but, Tesla relative to the market, doing pretty well and not, too much of a surprise. Now, I do actually think that we will get a little bit of weakness, most likely going into the next few days, which I'll explain why soon. But overall, we mentioned how this has been a pretty bullish breakout. Now, I did do slight adjustments here. There's two adjustments I made. The first of which is going to be on the daily. I wasn't a fan of the daily pennant. There was just too much noise around it. I prefer the weekly pennant, and I'll explain why soon. So for the daily pennant or situation, I guess you can say, I'm using from all-time highs to kind of use that as that kind of breakout example, which also lines up pretty well with that retest that we had down over here with those Fibonacci's, bullish retracement, etc. Technically a retest, etc., etc., etc. So that's all good news, right? We'll go over the pennant on the weeklies very soon. But from the daily perspective, from this little push up, like I mentioned, this seemed like a bullish retracement into the Fibonacci's, into a retest, into, pretty much looking like a bit of a bull flag. Pretty aggressive bull flag, but a bull flag nonetheless. And then we got a nice pop from it. Now, we are at resistance here, right? This is a pretty major resistance. Pretty much this 350, give or take about, a couple dollars. It's a resistance that, it is going to need to snap. Now, if and most likely when Tesla snaps it and turns it into a support, then I think the fireworks will most likely really begin. I think that's when Tesla gets, can finally get unleashed. If it can finally turn 350-ish, of course, into support, that's when I definitely would not want to be a bear. And I do expect that to happen. Now, do I expect that to happen as early as tomorrow? I mean, there's always a chance. You never know. When Tesla gets going, it gets going. But I'd be surprised if it happens that quick. So let me explain why that is and what I expect overall. But this right here is kind of what I expect. Actually, you can kind of get an idea right now where, I wouldn't be surprised to see a retracement for a few reasons. Number one, starting off on the daily, we have the 9 exponential moving average currently sitting at 333 and change. It'll be a bit higher tomorrow, probably closer to like 335 probably or something like that, right? It's going to obviously slowly move up, towards the price day by day, right? Until the price and the 9 EMA finally meet. Whether they come to each other, whether, the price stays up here and the 9 EMA comes into it, or we just go straight down to it, whichever the case is, right? I expect price to, at some point, probably this week, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, maybe third, I don't know exactly when, but most likely this week, I do expect price and the 9 EMA to kiss, essentially. That's what I'll be waiting for, and that's kind of what I'm expecting. So again, when a stock gets too far away from the 9 exponential moving average, especially a large cap stock, even Tesla, you most likely will come back down into it, right? So that's the first thing that I'm looking at. The second thing I'm looking at is the 4-hour SMI. It's still pointing straight up. There is still more room, but you can see it's now finally also starting to enter that red territory, which every time it's been there, it has signaled it's time to pull back soon. Not necessarily right here, right now, but we're getting to that stage. The best case scenario is if we find strong strength for whatever reason, maybe some news comes out, whatever the reason is, the most ideal scenario is we find strength before this SMI fully gets over above the red zone, kind of like it did in these instances right here, and kind of like what it did right here, you can see. But it also gets back above 350. If we can get a nice push into the 350s and then the SMI gets to that range and then the cool off of the SMI back to, at the very least, the mid range, if you will, to like 0 roughly, right? Kind of in the middle right here, occurs off of this kind of, retest of 350s and sort of kind of, consolidation around 350s. That is like the best case scenario. I don't think that's going to happen, but that is the best case scenario. That would be the most ideal scenario. We get a nice breakout, kind of consolidate, calm down a bit, let the EMAs catch up, the daily EMAs, etc. Hold 350 as support. The 4-hour SMI cools off, and then everything heads higher. Everything goes higher. That's best case scenario. The more realistic case scenario, the thing that I personally expect right now, is we get a shorter term sell-off. Not necessarily a big sell-off, but a sell-off. right? Where, you know, we do end up getting a rejection around this level. You know, we find some issues, especially if we start losing sort of 345, roughly 346, because you can see, you can make an argument, the fact that, you know, this area, if I take this thing here and put it like this, right, you can kind of get an idea also, right? These candles back here, you know, what do they have issues with? They had issues getting above and closing above 345, 346. This is, you can see, not only do we start closing a 1 hour candle above, but we're, for the last 3 hours roughly, you know, we're very obviously turning this, again, mid 340s region into support. Was a resistance into support. So if we lose mid 340s, then I'm even more confident that we most likely get a short-term retracement to the downside to, again, the 9 exponential moving average on the daily, or they usually coincide roughly the 21 EMA on the hourly, which currently is sitting at 338, and the 9 EMA on the daily, 333. So they're both around that, we'll just say mid 330s roughly region, right? So to one of those regions, to one of those is what I would expect if we lose pretty much the mid 340s, a retracement back into the mid to high 330s. That's my current expectation. And what that will do is, if we cannot break right away, that will bring us down, cool off the 1 hour SMI, which is very overheated, reset the daily EMAs and kind of get back to at least the 9 exponential moving average, and also let the 4 hour SMI maybe cool off a little bit. That's my current expectations. Let's see how it goes, right? Let's see how it goes. But that's what I personally believe will happen as of right now. So one step at a time. But again, overall, this is the short term. This is just short term. Overall, though, I do expect this retracement to be a bullish retracement. I do expect us, we technically made this high over here. We did break this high temporarily, which is good, right? So I would expect this, assuming this is the high, to be a bullish retracement back to about that 0.382 Fibonacci, which is pretty much around 336. Everything's lining up. You can see a lot of things are lining up around those mid 330s roughly, right? A lot of things are there. There's a lot of confluence, if you will, there, which is good. So that's my current expectation. A little bit of a sell-off down to about the mid to high 330s, most likely hold. And I mean, not most likely hold, they better hold, because if we start losing 330s again, if we start closing below 330, that's not good. That'll be a red flag. But I would expect that to essentially build pressure, build, you know, fresh steam, if you will, fresh ignition, if you will, and then we ultimately break 350. I expect one of these two to happen. Obviously, let's go over the bearish aspect. If it's bearish and we start closing below 330, then I would definitely have major warning flags, and we most likely will get a much more larger bearish retracement. And let's finish the things off on the weekly, right? What is the weekly suggesting us? I swear I clicked on the weekly like 3 times here. I don't know what this is. Let me remove all this. What is this? Was that the daily arrow? Oh, it was a daily arrow, whatever. The weekly looks great. Actually, I think the weekly looks absolutely phenomenal, right? The weekly, I really don't see any major warning signs with the weekly. The EMAs are bullish. It's a good sign. We broke out of the pennant, right? This is that daily pennant I had, but it was just very messy. The weekly is cleaner, right? The weekly is cleaner. Not only did we have a nice, beautiful looking breakout last week, but this morning we ended up getting arguably a retest in this very kind of mid 330s region. We had a retest of this breakout of the pennant, which we held so far and bounced off of it, which is why if we come back to the mid to high 330s again, you know, I expect that support to maintain essentially, right? But we also have the MACD flipping bullish. Again, my MACD settings are slightly different. It's slower, but more impactful when something flashes, if you will. And we have the SMI with a bullish crossover, right? So a lot of things on the weekly are pointing to bullishness ultimately, right? To bullishness. Now, again, like I said, if we start closing essentially below 330, like a weekly candle, even a daily candle, but especially a weekly candle, that would be a very large major warning flag for me, right? I would be, let's just say that the bulls, you better hope that doesn't happen. If you're a bear, you better hope that does happen. But as long as that does not happen, I do view this as a bullish situation setting up on Tesla. I personally, not financial advice, view any dips to the mid to high 330s as just bullish opportunities. And yeah, I mean, I do think that it's looking overall pretty damn solid. So once we break above this range, once we turn 350s-ish into support and we finally break above it, which I do think will happen, maybe not necessarily right away, but I do think that's the game plan here. I do expect us at least, and maybe even pretty quickly, 380. I would expect about 380 to as high as 390, sort of that very high 300s region at least. That's like my base level to be retested. From there, we'll of course reassess, but assuming the bullish momentum continues, which again, we'll continue monitoring it as it happens, I would expect that to be, at the very least, I would expect that to be tested. If not, of course, turn this into support. We can at the very least come back up and retest even the middle type levels of the 400s, right? Which is where I would expect price to start finding maybe some resistance, but, you know, getting closer to that all-time highs level. That's kind of what I would expect. And that's kind of what I would, you know, foresee if we essentially break above this sort of, you know, 380s-ish region, turn it into support and make our way, well, higher. So again, one step at a time. There's a lot of things to watch for, but overall TLDR, as long as you don't see sub 330, I believe Tesla is bullish, and I think it's looking absolutely solid. It's arguably one of the better setups right now of all the Max 7s. I would argue Apple is also pretty up there. I think Apple's a pretty good looking setup as well, but I believe Tesla is probably one of the best looking setups right now. If I just look at everything quickly, Netflix is okay. Meta's okay, honestly. I think Meta's a pretty decent setup. Microsoft definitely lost steam, absolutely. Amazon, it's okay. Google kind of ran its course. This is not a place where you enter. This is a place where you ride the dip or ride the wave if you're already in it. AMD is looking mediocre, and AMD is looking mediocre. I do think Tesla and Apple are actually the best setups right now in the market of the Max 7, of course. My opinion, of course, could be wrong, but let's see what happens. Let's see where this goes, and I'll see you guys. Actually, before we end off the video, I do want to talk about options flow. Overall, the bullish flow has definitely dominated over the bearish flow, but the bears aren't fully giving up. More specifically, throughout around 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., we had a lot of bearish flow come in over here. Between 100 to 200K in premium. A lot of it, if not most of it, was for this week, right? 8/29, which is this Friday. Puts, 345 puts was the major one. Some 342.5, some 340s, but the main one was 345 puts that came in. So clearly someone is expecting Tesla to most likely get that retracement as well. And that's kind of what I would expect as well. Again, don't be too shocked if we start seeing at the very least low 340s, but I really wouldn't be shocked to see high 330s, maybe mid 330s. Really, really, really wouldn't shock me. But again, let's take it one step at a time. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.